Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ken and I am a counsellor helping men and women to better navigate the challenges of their dating and relationship lives whilst also helping them to achieve a better sense of peace off the back of quarter life and midlife crises. For today's episode, the topic that I'm going to be talking about is my partner a narcissist? This is a video that is going to explore the nuance and the complexity of this topic because the short answer is who knows? Without being able to diagnose, I have no idea. And it's also going to talk about the dangers of labeling and also where it can be helpful if you are in the process of recovery. With all that being said, if this video is of any help, please like and subscribe. It greatly helps me out. And if you are new to this channel, feel free to subscribe. If you're looking to work with me, you can always click the link in my bio. And if you have any experiences dating narcissists or having had narcissistic abuse, please pop it in the chat below. I'd love to hear your comments and feedback. So let's dive straight in. I'm not going to be referring to narcissistic personality disorder based on the DSM's definition because I, as a counsellor, cannot diagnose anyone, but I much prefer to look at patterns of behaviour because that does help to give people an understanding of how it impacts them. So let's talk about a classic example of narcissism in dating. You're online, you meet someone, they seem amazing. They've got a great sounding job. They also seem to have a lot of ambition. They're a person, when they meet you, you're really interested in them. They're sounding fantastic. They're saying things to you like, I've never met someone as amazing as you. You're like my soulmate. They may even rush and advance to have you both move in together. They may want to also escalate things into marriage within a year. And as the cracks show, they may start to become incredibly passive aggressive. And you may feel like something is wrong and that you've made something wrong, and you try and get things to how they were in the honeymoon phase of this experience. And then as you get to know them even further, you feel like you're stepping on eggshells. You're also experiencing situations where you're seeing lies in their behavior, and every time you call it out, they say, you're oversensitive, you're overthinking this, you're the one with the problems, you need to seek therapy. And so as you're being gaslit, you start to self-blame and start to feel like you're going crazy. And then gradually over time, this person eventually starts doing things which are extremely suspicious, hanging out more with the colleague at work, chatting them up and spending a lot of time with them, not really returning calls as frequently as they used to, and also just engaging in very shady behavior, whilst also maintaining that you stop talking to anyone of the opposite or same sex, depending on who you're interested in, and ensuring that you don't have any romantic connections in your life who may be even considered as friends, because there is the risk that you may quote unquote be cheating on them, which ironically enough is what they could potentially do, which is often what happens when they cheat on you and they leave you. So the point of exploring that particular example of how a narcissistic relationship can start is really just to illustrate three key things. Love bombing, intense oversharing, and also excitement in the beginning of dating, followed by a phase of devaluing where the person with narcissistic traits starts to take attacks at your character and makes you begin to question your reality and thinking that, you're the one responsible for this relationship going to hell. And for you, the person in it, you may feel like you've done something wrong and that you do love this person and you're trying everything in your power to make this work between the two of you, which is why when they eventually may cheat on you, they don't always cheat, or they may end up just engaging you in a protracted relationship where kids might be involved and you're just becoming emotionally numb and drained to the point of even feeling suicidal. You feel exhausted by this experience. And this is only one example of a spectrum of narcissism where you can have people who might seem well put together, but are not inside. So that's a classic example of narcissism. And also the behavior will include things like black and white thinking. They're very much their way or the highway. They also make you feel like you're stepping on eggshells around them because if you say the wrong thing, they blow up into a tantrum and get angry at you and you just want it to stop. They also have the capacity to gaslight you and make you question your reality. These are the kind of folks who really don't like it when you're succeeding and they're not, because then they want to try and tear you down. These are the kind of folk who also lack a lot of empathy and the ability to hear what you're going through without feeling like it's an attack on them. That is just a general cluster of the behavior that you'll see. Cheating, addictive personality, impulsivity are all part of this too. Massive emotional dysregulation. So as you can see, there is a lot going on in here. And the key thing I want to just illustrate is that if you can appreciate that these are some of the characteristics, you can also appreciate then the next part of this, which makes this very tricky, which is the good parts of them. So here's the challenge that a lot of people face when it comes to labeling. If you read descriptions of narcissism, it paints a person as all bad and pejorative. And when it comes to people's behavior, it's far easier to track and also to help you understand things. A person's behavior does not find their character. So if you're constantly looking at bad behavior and thinking the person's a bad person, that kind of goes against what your mental image of a person is. When you met an individual and you had a great time with them, you saw that they had a capacity for love, for doing amazing things, for being virtuous and for showing up. They also have a part which is capable of abuse, emotional and psychological terror, and also putting you in a state of fight or flight. You need to marry that in order to help you understand that a person can have parts of them that are great whilst also having parts of them which are problematic. And for a lot of people, they get stuck because they can't marry the two together because they think, where did that person go? It was there all along. Another key thing to understand is that not every single person who has a lot of these narcissistic traits is actually 100% a narcissist based on the DSM's category of a narcissistic personality disordered individual. So if you're getting into a froth trying to figure out, is this person a narcissist? It's actually going to set you back. Often I find that a lot of people struggle with the definition of narcissism because they then question, well, am I the narcissist? And I understand that obviously when you're in a phase of self-blame off the back of these situations, it's a very easy question to ask yourself too. Quick answer, no. But the key thing is that we all have the capacity to be narcissistic at times. These are maladaptive traits that often overextend themselves from childhood. We can't change them. They are not able to be adjusted. A person would only be able to change this if they came to therapy and wanted to actively work on themselves too. But the key thing is that a person is both capable of being loving and abusive. We all have that capacity, some more than others on one end of the spectrum. So here's where the problems start to set in too. Not every relationship dynamic happens exactly the way I described it. You can be in a relationship with someone who displays narcissistic patterns of behavior, and it's just something that they've carried over from childhood, and it's just showing up in their relationship. The other thing too to bear in mind is that many people who are emotionally unavailable also have the capacity to love bomb, devalue, and discard in a way which is not exactly the same as the classic narcissistic example of love bombing, devalue, discard. So it's really important to understand that there is a lot of grayness and nuance to this. And for a lot of folk out there, they're very self-aware of that they're doing something wrong and that they want to work on it. And there are others obviously who don't, that's them. But the key thing to say is that labels like narcissist, avoidant, emotionally unavailable don't help us when we're talking about character. But when we're talking about behavior, it starts to help us broaden our appreciation of a person to help us feel like, how is that impacting me? So here's how to help you out. It's really important to have acceptance and appreciation of a person. For example, you might be a friend of someone who's really struggling to emotionally hold space for you. For example, you might say, I'm having a difficult time at work. Their go-to response might be, well, what did you do about it? How did you contribute to this? Because they're all in their head and they're not able to connect with what you're feeling. And in that case, if they've shown that they aren't able to listen and support you in that way, the important thing to realize is they are a friend who is capable of showing up for me in some areas of my life, but they are not capable of offering and holding space for me when I'm feeling emotional. That's acceptance. You don't hire a plumber to do your electricity, and conversely, an electrician won't be doing your plumbing. It's important to understand the limits and the strengths of people, because if you get too caught up trying to figure out, are they a personality disorder, it just makes things impossible. Basically, it goes to the whole principle of birds fly, fish swim. Oh, this person gets triggered whenever I talk about girls. This person is capable of being really nice to me when they're in a good mood, but when they're pissed off and aren't able to work through their regulation, they're abusive to me. The next line of thought then becomes, and how do I feel about this behavior? If you've done everything possible, tried communicating with them, doing all the things and all the steps that are recommended by psychotherapists, psychologists, counselors, and therapists, and nothing is changing and they're not budging in their behavior, hell, you've even been to couples counseling and nothing's changed there, you now need to come to an even greater form of radical acceptance and being like, this is who they are. They've shown no willingness to change. This is who they are. Can I put up with the occasional bits of niceness followed by the rudeness and also the passive-aggressive behavior? Or do I take a new option and leave? And once you've done all of the things possible, explored every option that's available to you, you really are left with those two options. That's it. You've done everything you possibly can. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the choice is, does this work for you? Can you have some form of acceptance around it? Or are you willing to leave and just be like, nah, this isn't worth it for me? For many people, it's okay if you have to accept this. I don't mean it's okay that you have to put up with the BS of abuse. No one deserves or wants that. But co-parenting situations, for example, do require often to be partnered with some very abusive folk who are out there. And I'm going to tell you, it's tragic and it's heartbreaking that people have to go through that. And sometimes that's just the way it is for the time being. In other cases, people can get away. But I got to be honest, healing off the back of these experiences is often at times harder in the beginning because you're going through so much emotional whiplash off the back of all that. And so it can be the hardest part of the entire journey before it gets better. The last thing I want to say in summary of this entire thing is it's not a question of are they a narcissist? It's more of a question of how is their behavior making me feel? How is this individual's behavior impacting my health and well-being? Next question, have I communicated with this at the best of my abilities to help them understand that their ways are hurting me? And if they're continuing to do so, can I accept this? If I can accept this, hooray. If I can't, what do I need to do about it? And if you're trying to look back and figure out whether or not they were a narcissist or not, look, if it helps you to call them a narcissist, more power to you. People off the back of these abusive situations often need the label in order to help them clear that out of their system in order to heal. That's part of the healing journey for a lot of other people. But as you continue down this journey, you'll quickly realize it's so much more complex than that. And it's not always black and white. It's not always were they a narcissist or an empath, were they an avoidant or a secure person. It's rich and confusing. To wrap up, I also want to make it clear that if anyone comes in here with the suspicion that they are dealing with someone who's narcissistic, I will happily hold space for them and say, yeah, that sounds narcissistic, because at the end of the day, I take narcissistic abuse very seriously. The person who's abusing you may not actually be 100% narcissist. It doesn't matter. If they're engaging in narc abuse, they're engaging in narc abuse. It is what it is. So if you're in that state of abject terror, stress, or hell, you're just emotionally numb and you're just wanting out, I will happily hold space for you and use the language necessary to help you. I'm not about gatekeeping people into saying, you can't call them a narcissist, you can't call this gaslighting. I just think that it's one of those things where it's important to be aware that there is a phase for all things. In the thick of this, the language may be really helpful. When you're healing, the language may be really helpful. But when you get to a phase of indifference, probably won't matter as much. But everyone is at a different step of their journey. I hope this has helped. Please like and subscribe. And if this has helped, please feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear your experience on this. Bye for now.